Hello everyone, welcome to the Matter Career. This is Matthew May. In this episode of the Matter Career, I'll be reviewing and analyzing the book called Running Girls by Matt Brolly, which is on Amazon. You can access this book on Kindle, audiobook, paperback, and CD. The book is published by Thomas and Mercer. The story will start off with Frank Randall being convicted of murder of his wife, and once he returns, he's suspected of murder when Grace Harridan is murdered and is killed in the same way his wife, Annie Randall, was murdered. The community of Galveston, Texas, is not forgiving him for this murder. They will not let him forget this murder. This story will have a fugitive feel to it, as if anyone has seen the fugitive, Dr. Richard Kimball gets convicted of murdering his wife. It is what people think, but not everything as it seems. This is not the case in that movie. It is not the case in this book. I'll give him a rating in the review. Hope this episode inspires you to read, watch, and learn. I want to thank Antonio, Ken, and Peter for becoming patrons on my Patreon page, as this helps to support the channel and means a lot to me as well. It's not the amount of how much I make. It's the idea that someone believes in what this channel is about and wants to support it. Please help by signing up for Patreon like Antonio, Ken, and Peter, or YouTube memberships. You'll say to me that you believe in this channel and you want it to thrive and keep it independent. You can sign up for Patreon at $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, or as high as $30 a month. If you sign up at $10 a month or higher on my Patreon page, you get a 7-day free trial before being charged for the month. For YouTubers, you can sign up at $3.90 a month, $9.90 a month, $24.90 a month, and you can go as high as $49 a month. Thank you. Now on the review. As was mentioned before in this review, Frank Randall was convicted of murdering his wife, Annie Randall. Frank returned from prison to Galveston, Texas. He had to go through Houston, Texas to get to Galveston, Texas. Frank does not have the key to his old house, and he tries to get in, but is locked after all these years. He looks for the key, but Warren Campbell, the retired police chief of the Galveston Police Department, is there, and Warren has his former deputies who are retired as well beat up on Frank Randall. If Lori Campbell had not shown up, Frank Randall would have been beaten to death. Lori Campbell is married to Frank Randall's son David. She is Frank Randall's daughter-in-law and Warren Campbell's granddaughter-in-law. If you are asking, Annie Randall was Warren Campbell's daughter. This makes Warren Campbell Frank Randall's father-in-law. One can understand why Warren Campbell would be harboring bad feelings toward Frank Randall, since he blames him for Annie Randall, his daughter, being killed, and believes Frank Randall had something to do with it. As was mentioned before, Frank Randall will appear to be the killer, and not everything is what it seems in this story. This is like what happens in The Fugitive that starred Harrison Ford back in 1993. I mentioned that movie in Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny, and in Season 1 of Gotham Knights. It is hard to believe that movie is now 30 years old. Dr. Richard Kimball, like Frank Randall, was convicted of killing his wife, but he's not responsible for that death. He was trying to resuscitate his wife back to life after she was killed by the one-armed man in that story. His search for the one-armed man is what drives Dr. Richard Kimball. David Campbell took his grandfather's Warren Campbell's last name because he was furious with his father, Frank Randall, for taking his mother, Annie Randall, away from him. This is understandable because if your own father was responsible for killing your own mother, you want to be free of anything that reminds you of him. This includes his last name. If someone had this happen like it did for David Campbell, someone would do the same thing as David Campbell did. David is married to Lori Campbell, and yes, Lori Campbell is a detective for the Galveston Police Department. And Lori Campbell will be assigned to the Grace Harridan murder. When Grace Harridan was murdered after she was left in a running position, very similar to Annie Randall, this causes the community and the police department to believe that Frank Randall is responsible for her death. Warren Campbell is furious Lori Campbell for not letting him and his former deputies and not killing Frank Randall. Warren Campbell believes if they did that, then Grace Harridan would not be dead. This should not be the case. One does not get to vote vigilante justice. Does not give a person the right to be judged during execution. Every individual deserves the right to reasonable doubt before jumping to conclusion. The reason there are investigations is so that the police can find the evidence they're looking for. This is why the police departments have detectives to help them in cases where they need to be solved. Lori Campbell will meet Tilly, Grace's girlfriend. She will meet Sandra and Grace Harridan, Grace's mother and father. This will cause Tilly to be mad to find out that her girlfriend, Grace Harridan, is dead. They blame herself and tell Lori if she and Grace were not arguing, Grace would still be alive. Lori Campbell tells Tilly, "You cannot think like that. It is not your fault. One cannot know what will happen. It does not do any good to live in what-if scenarios. This is true. I'm guilty myself. I wonder if I had done this differently, this would not have happened." It's hard to tell yourself to think differently because we all believe we can do it differently. Tilly will tell Lori Campbell of Mia Washington, who was Grace Harridan's girlfriend before. Tilly was afraid Grace Harridan would have gone back to Mia Washington, and that is why Grace Harridan went for a run, and this gives the killer the opportunity to kill her. Sandra and Glenn Harrington have a strained relationship, to say the least. They are both wealthy, but wealth does not make them happy. Glenn likes young girls, as the story will show here. He is suspected of having a relationship with girls around Grace Harridan's age. The police will find out that he has been having these relationships for a long time. Glenn Harridan likes them young. He is 49 and the girls average around 18, 19, or 20 years old. It is not legal, but it makes it scary. It is not unheard as there is a congressman that had relationships with a girl that is 17 years old. That makes it statutory rape where that is legal. Glenn is at the edge of that, but he has not broken any laws there. It does make it suspicious since his daughter is dead. The story will reveal that Glenn Harridan had a relationship with his daughter, Grace's old girlfriend of Mia Washington. Grace ends up finding this out. Another person to be concerned about in the story is Maurice Randall. Frank Randall's older brother in his story. Maurice Randall asked his brother Frank Randall to live with him at his church. Frank is hesitant to do this, but he decides to do it as he is tired of being alone. He was alone in prison for 16 years and fears he could use the company. Maurice Randall used to beat his brother Frank Randall after their father beat Maurice. Frank Randall was the retaliation of Maurice since this happened when they were kids. Maurice feels guilty for that. He becomes a pastor. Frank tells Maurice that he did not become that way, even though their father was an abuser. Maurice tells Frank that he is sorry and wishes that he did not do this. Maurice thinks Frank killed his wife, but Frank tells him he did not do it. This is true. He did not kill Anne Randall, his wife, and he is not responsible for killing Grace Harridan that he had been found recently murdered. Neil Mosley is the attorney for Maurice Randall and represents Frank as well after Frank gets suspected of killing Grace Harridan. He points out if you do not have any evidence to keep Frank here in jail, you must let him go. Neil Mosley is the wild card of this book. The reader will believe there is nothing wrong with him, but there is more to meet the eye with Neil Mosley. Neil Mosley has a secret past, and the reader will discover the past once the story progresses. Lori Campbell is struggling with losing her daughter, Millie. She was pregnant with her husband, David Campbell's child. Millie ended up being a stillbirth. This can cause married couples such as David and Lori Campbell to get divorced, but they endure this. Lori believes that David is having an affair with another woman, but she finds out that he is not. This woman is part of a grief circle that helps people deal with grief, such as losing her child. This is not their only problem, as David is still mad at his father, Frank Randall, for killing his mother, Annie Randall. And like most people in Galveston, Texas, he believes his father killed Grace Harridan. Lori Campbell wants to see the good in Frank Randall, and she cannot believe as old and feeble Frank Randall looks. There is no way he could have killed Grace Harridan. This also makes David upset with his wife, Lori Campbell. David believes his dad, Frank Randall, has manipulated his wife, Lori Campbell, into believing he's not capable of this. The reader will find this is not the case as the book progresses. There's a hurricane that will appear in this story. Yes, if you're asking, hurricanes are common in Galveston, Texas. Hurricanes such as Ike and Rita caused a lot of damage in Galveston, Texas. It happens a lot, to say the least. Lori Campbell will have to not only have to solve the case, but she must deal with the hurricane, which could slow her down, and she is afraid the killer will get away if she does not figure out what the killer's endgame is. She wants to know what is the motive for killing all these people in the 16-year period of the murders that happened in the story. It's not to be revealed, nothing more we would hear. It does bring the reader to the climax of the story. It's not clear if there will be another story, but it does not mean the author could not write another one. I'll give you my rating. I give Running Girls a 10 out of 10. It was fun but keeps the reader guessing. The book does a great job of having the reader create theories and who is responsible for the death of these victims. The killer is motivated by something. These murders are not random but premeditated. The killer looks for making a particular person pay. As was told in the movie The Fugitive, Dr. Richard Kimball is accused of killing his wife, and he must figure out who did this. The motive is there to frame him because the killer worked for the doctor that wanted to get the drug approved that had issues in the clinical trials that were being done in the hospital that Dr. Richard Kimball worked at. This shows the point I was making is that nothing is not what it appears to be. The cases in both stories need to be looked at very carefully, and a good detective looks at all angles. They do not jump to conclusions. Most stories prove that evidence lies and cannot always be trusted. I also point this out in Gotham Knights Season 1 that I reviewed recently on this channel. It's good that this story comes with an audio version, because if a person travels, that is a plus. Please consider going to my store of matacredit.com and get your own set of merchandise today. You can also check out my blog while you're on my website. You can also click the Patreon link on my website and support me that way. Thank you. Check out my playlist review of books that I review coming up right now. Please check out my playlist review of Boss by clicking on this link right now. Please check out my review of Black River coming up at the end screen. Thank you for watching or read. Please like this video if you found it helpful. Please subscribe to my channel. Please hit the notification bell so you never miss a video at the bottom of the video. Please want to cover down the road in the comment section. Please share the video and email my channel and grow. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Remember, do not forget to read, watch, and learn.